Welcome to the Rock the Stage Show. Each week, international media expert Rich Bontrager has in-depth and personal conversations with celebrities, top leaders, authors, speakers, and media professionals. Now, from the Rock the Stage studios, here's your host, the Trigger, Rich Bontrager.
Welcome back. Rock the Stage Show, Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're here for another great conversation. Always unscripted, highly informative, and a lot of fun. We have the actors, directors, producers, we have the artists, and today we're going to get back into the author space once again. You know, the thing about the authors is it's kind of like public speakers, and we're going to probably overlap some of that conversation tonight anyways, but public speaking is one of the biggest fears in all the world. People are afraid of it, and I'm sure you've heard the joke about just think of everybody being naked. All right, it doesn't work. Believe me, I've tried it. It's a bad image. You don't want to do that. But public speaking is one of the toughest things for people to overcome the fear, getting on mic, presenting themselves. I think the second biggest fear might be being an author, writing your book, putting it to print, putting those thoughts in your head, and then getting it out there. Because the fear is, what if nobody likes it? I think we're going to talk about some of that and also some of the other things as new trends, changes that have happened in the place of authorship. And we're going to get into that conversation here tonight. Cathy Fyock is the business book strategist who works with thought leaders and professionals who want to write a book as a business tool. She's the author of 12 different books, a member of the National Speakers Association, and her latest book, Writer's Crisis, is out now. You're going to want to learn about that a little bit today. Welcome to Rock the Stage Show, Cathy Fyock. Here she is. Great to see you.
Great to be here.
So before we get into the meat and the bones of all this today, I'm kind of interested in this. You believe that authors can change the world.
I do. I
think that's a great sentiment, but unpack that because I don't think people believe authors can change the world.
Well, I think that anytime we're bold enough to put our thought leadership out there and to share our story, to share our truth, then we can make one person better and they can share that with one person. And it's a trickle down effect that happens when we are positive and impact others in a positive way. It does have this wonderful ripple effect. And that's what I'm hoping for our world.
Well, hopefully I have a couple ripples here today to get the ball rolling for you again today. Now, book strategy, the business book strategist. People, and again, I've worked on this concept. I know this concept very well. Turn your book into your business card. Build around that. And people are still scratching their head and talk to me. I got a business card. Why do I need a book? So, first of all, why do they need a business book to build them up?
Well, I think anytime a thought leader, someone who has great ideas to share, you can only share them with so many people verbally. You know, even if you're speaking to large audiences, your message is gone when the stage is gone. And what I love about a book is the permanence of a book, and the fact that that content can be also repurposed in so many ways once you've written the book. So I'm just a big believer in the power of a book to get one's message out there, to create a brand, to create a bigger stage for that author.
Now, it's interesting you use the word strategy and your tag of who you are, but I've also heard author coaches, experts say, there is no strategy. Just get the book out of you. Just put it on paper. Now, I get the idea of vomit it up and get it out of you is a good concept, but you probably don't take that approach, do you?
No. I mean, there's something to this notion of not overthinking it, but you start, when I'm working with a client, we start with the business purpose. What is it that you want to achieve? And we go from there, because too often it's not any book that will grow a business.
Yes.
And so it's the right book with the right message at the right time with the right framing. So it's getting all of the strategic pieces of the book aligned with the business. So it's figuring out, how will I use this book in my business? Is it the curriculum for something I'm teaching? Is it to open doors? You know, what is the purpose what is the thesis statement? What is it about? What is the narrow niche about what it's about? Who is it for? And that again is a narrow niche. And then what is the structure? So we focus on those things first before we write the first word.
So people may have a title in their head. They may have a idea, but you brought it all back and say, let's make sure we got all the basics down before we jump in. You get
Yes.
pushback on that sometimes with people saying, I know I got it. I know I got it. Come on, let me do it.
Yeah, and sometimes people do have a very clear vision. I have worked with a few folks who are really clear about their work and their business and their vision and how it all fits together, and they write a really good book. But a lot of those people don't work with me. They just go on and write their own books. But those folks who are just they need someone to bounce ideas off of. They need someone to ask critical questions. They need maybe even a little bit of cheerleading and accountability. So
Yeah.
those things are things that I do with my clients.
So you went right where I was going to go. Again, she doesn't know the questions. I never tell my guests my questions, but
No.
this is again, like I said in the introduction, I work with authors for book launches and different things. Often they're scaredy cats. Their confidence is not good when it comes to writing the news, producing the book, trusting who they're working with, and let alone speaking about the book. So, how do you help them with the confidence part that many authors don't have?
What is really interesting to me, Rich, is that oftentimes people come to me, they don't know how to start. But when we really dig into the book and we get them moving forward, I find that there's great reluctance because there is this, you kind of said it earlier, there's an opening of the kimono of bearing one's soul when you write. And, um, and you're really telling the world what you know and kind of what you don't know as well.
Right.
So you are really becoming very vulnerable as a writer. And it's not just one time, if you're on the stage speaking, that's one time being vulnerable. But if you've written, it's out there forever. So it's really, really scary. And so a lot of times people come to me, they don't think that they need a confidence builder because they're thought leaders.
Oh,
They are powerful professionals. They're out there doing great work in the world. But when it comes right down to it, a lot of the resistance to writing or the fact that people haven't written the book is because deep down they're scared to death of writing the book.
I've got three in my head. I've got three
Of
in my
course
heart,
you do.
and I haven't got them ever out because I've started, I've stopped. It is. I will play share it here. It's my confidence. I can speak on stage. I can speak on radio and TV. But there's about pen to paper, print, and it's finally there, and they can read it and hold it up and say, "Did you really mean to write that?" And there's something about that, the finality of it, that scares the daylights out of me and many others.
Yes, yes. And so I have to talk people off the ledge. So many times I'll even work with a client and they've got the book basically finished and they don't want to move forward.
Mhm.
So sometimes it comes, the reluctance comes at the oddest times. You'd think they put all of this effort and time and money into writing this book, and the last thing that would hold them back is this fear, but it's very real.
It's very, very real. And then when you get them on stage, as you're an NSA member, public speaker yourself, I found when I work with authors, the hardest thing for them is to put on the book and talk about the book and share their heart, share their genius. And they just want to read page 125 and read that to the crowd. It almost becomes a crutch to hide behind, but their genius is they wrote the book. They are the expert. Can you talk about that conflict between now they have it done, but now they don't want to talk anymore?
Some folks think that they once they've written it, they don't need to speak it anymore. But the power, I think, of having a book and speaking is the two in tandem with one another, because as you are speaking, you are inviting a lot of people who have never heard your message
Yes.
into um, getting a little glimpse of that, and then the book takes them further along the path. So it's both of those tools working together that's the real magic.
Now, your new book is about the writing crisis, and
Yes.
the world's changed. Amazon has changed a lot. That's part of it. That's part of it. You now have the AI factor in there, which people are going to get pinched on that. When you write a book with AI and it's everywhere, they will sniff it out and they will know. But everyone can self publish. They don't need the help that you provide and many others. And we're all just going crazy writing anything now and then getting that little badge from Amazon saying you're a bestseller.
That's right.
What? Where did the world go crazy and say that's the end all now? Because it used to be like you, the Wall Street Journal, the Times, all those other markers were serious. Not to diminish Amazon, but I'm going to diminish Amazon. It's not the same world.
No, it's not. It's not. But authors want to get their works out there, and sometimes by saying it's an Amazon bestseller, um, they let others know that that's an important criteria to them.
So, what is the crisis? I mean, I kind of threw a bunch of stuff there, but what would you say is the crisis study for writers?
Oh, well, my book, Writer Crisis Hotline, is about the issues that many writers face, the lack of confidence that we've already talked about, the
Mhm.
fear of being exposed, of the mental block of not being focused on the right things. There are many, many different crises that come when you're writing a book. So, my book that I wrote with Allie Pleiter, we identify 40 some odd crises that can happen in writing your book, and then we address them, and it's written sort of as a um, Dear Abby kind of a style,
Oh, cool.
with folks writing in about their issue, and then we respond to those issues as the expert.
Now, one of the things that I've never learned about in this space is you have great stories. Sometimes you change the name to protect the innocent or the not so innocent. Sometimes
Right.
you put the full names in there. But do you need to get permission first? Or is that one of those things you do it and then ask for forgiveness later? How does that really work with using the stories?
Well, it depends on how good of a friend you are with your attorney, I guess. But if you don't want to be taken to court, then you probably need to get permissions, especially anytime you're using a client's or someone's actual name there and the details of that story. You want to get permission, and I would get permission in writing. Now there are times though when you can change many of the details and you camouflage the guilty and the innocent, and that's all right, but be sure that they are well camouflaged so that no one can claim that um, there was defamation of character or some such thing with your book.
Well, as public speakers, we both know we tell stories and we often change the locations, the name of the
Sure.
person. And some people will say, well, you're embellishing the story now. Just tell this darn story and tell the story. But we have to protect certain
Yeah.
elements of what we storytell, right?
Yeah, sometimes to tell a story about something that's gone horribly wrong, it's very helpful for the audience or the reader, but the person who made that mistake perhaps doesn't want to have that spread across the front page of the newspaper or in your book.
Yeah, that will be the quote they pull out. You know what will be
That's right. That's
the
right.
teaser quote.
Absolutely. So
Now
yes,
I know.
and
Oh,
sometimes my client will also do a composite character. They may take several clients' behaviors and put that into one story that really tells the story and makes that a compelling story to follow.
and I know people that know the true story, then will tell me that's not the right location. That's not the right date. There weren't
Mhm.
500 people there. Well, that conglomerate story puts 500 people there. And they will argue and say, again, that's crossing the line of embellishing. But again, we're storytellers,
Yes, I
right?
think that the essence of the story needs to be true.
Yes.
The truth that you are sharing, the moral of the story needs to be based in the truth. all the details, though, are subject to interpretation or even memory. How we remember certain
Oh, yeah.
episodes. It's you have three people see the same event or talk about the event later, and they'll see it in three different ways. So some of that is just the function of memory.
Now, are we a reading society anymore? Video, podcasts. There's so much now that has grabbed the attention. I was a consummate reader. I mean, Hardy Boys, when the new Hardy Boys came out, I had it. I had it. And I kept reading and reading. It's not the same anymore. And have we lost the thirst for books the way you and I and many others loved books growing up?
Well, I'm sure it's always going to be a little bit different, depending upon kids and what their interests are and so forth. But I think the beauty of what's happening today is that there are so many ways that readers, individuals can consume information. And what we have now is just a lot of choices. So some of us love to read. We love the holding a book in our hand.
Now, I recently met an individual who did a book, and he was like, paint your own journey novel for kids type thing. He brought to adults. He added a visual narrative, but if you took your phone, the pages came alive on their phone and told the rest of the story. And I was blown away. Like, I'm reading this. This is cool. And then he goes, here, take your phone. And he's created bonus content that fits the narration of the characters in an animated story to go with the book he's reading.
Yeah.
Are we done creating creative ways to storytell?
Oh no, I think technology will open up new avenues all the time. So that's the fun of being a creative and of putting your thought leadership into the world. It really it's going to be changing, and I think that the more we can change and adapt and look at those new technologies as just a new avenue to express our stories.
I was at a conference a couple of years ago and speaking on the author area. We were all sharing a different expertise, but a guy got on the stage. He was talking about if you're a thought leader, a business leader, you're missing a whole market that you could blow up and own. And he has this big pause, and we're all like, okay, what is it? Tell us what it is.
What is it?
He said, take your business book and turn it into a children's book that helps them understand business at an early age. And there's a whole scholastic market out there. There's a whole library. Mom and dad will love you for teaching something. They'll help their kids in their future life. And the whole room did this loud gasp of like, a business book for kids. Whoever thought of? Have you heard that concept of bringing your high material down to the children?
Well, one of the things I am seeing is that a lot of individuals who are writing nonfiction are thinking about doing children's books. I have several speaker friends who have done children's books, but they're really kind of more for adults
Yeah.
than yeah. So they're this new genre, which is very cool. And the fact is, there are some adults who would like to have more pictures and and than words. So let's provide information to people the way they want it.
I'm still a comic book junkie. I'm never going to outgrow. So, bring me a good anime or a comic book.
Yeah.
Now, you've worked with over 240 different professionals to help them publish. You're in the people publishing books, but you're also in the people business.
Yes.
What's it like to spend that much time? It is their baby. It is their newborn child. There's so much angst. What's it like to be the birthing mother? To help go through that over and over again.
Well, what's the beautiful thing is I become very close with many of my authors, and I feel like I'm a member of the family because I've helped give birth to their child. So, in fact, I was talking with an editor once, and she said she's like the aunt or the great aunt. So I like that analogy, but I do feel very close to my authors and their products because I've seen it grow from this mere thought, this mere idea,
Yeah.
to a full-fledged published book that you can hold in your hands, and that's very exciting.
Now, through that process, as a give and take, especially if you're ghostwriting, but if you're working with them, how often do you run into a battle of you're like, there's a better way to do that story, or you don't need that story, and they're like, I need that story, and you're like, you don't need that story. How do you work with those give and take moments where you really know the high level in the future? They're in the moment and it's their baby.
Right. Well, I will always tell my client what I think. And in fact, usually I'll start the conversation with, well, you hired me to give you my opinion. So I am giving you my opinion. But the other thing is, at the end of the day, this is not my book. This is my client's book. And so while I may give them wonderful advice, and they may choose to take it or not, and that is purely their decision. And I'm really careful not to try and own the book, because I don't. It is truly their baby, but I can give them help. And usually I couch my advice in, based on what you said you wanted to do with this book, I don't believe that this current treatment is serving your purpose. So I'm usually couching it in that kind of language. But it's interesting. You gave an example of, I'm telling someone to take out a story, but usually it's the other way around. Usually I'm telling my client, you need to add a story. Sometimes there's a lot of words, a lot of wah
Yeah.
wah wah. Charlie Brown teacher kind of sounds coming out with a lot of narrative. And sometimes you need a great story. So if I give one piece of advice over and over, it is, let's add a story there. Let's illustrate what you're talking about. And that's going to make your writing stronger.
So you specialize in the business book strategy. Business books want to get to the A, B, and C. They want to get the profit margin. They want to get all the facts.
Yes, they
Stories
do.
are weak in the business sector. They are really weak. So when
No,
you,
no, that's purely a fallacy. Stories are sticky, stories are memorable.
they are, but the authors don't know how to put the stories in there.
I know. In fact, that's what my newsletter is about this month, because I've had to talk about this issue so much to my authors. It's like, you need a story here, because I get the words, but I don't know how to apply it until you've shown me. So it's that show, don't tell, and a story shows better than you can tell.
Now, painting with word pictures, illustrations, a joke, but also part of the business book, I think, should include a story that breaks the glass on a personal level, reveals they're not just a business executive in a stuffy office, they're a human being. Is there a place for the personal story in the
Absolutely.
business book?
Yes, yes, yes. Now, not every personal story belongs in your book. It
Yeah.
needs to make the point
Yes.
that you're trying to make, or illustrate the point that you're trying to make. So I think the mistake that some people think is, well, it's my story, so it goes in my book. Well, not necessarily. It needs to be foundational. It needs to make the point that you're trying to make in your narrative. So not every story belongs in your book, but your book, especially your nonfiction book, needs lots of stories for it to be sticky, memorable, and accessible to the reader.
Well, because stories grab the heart. They get you from the mind to the
Yes,
heart, and also they get you. You can feel it. You can taste it. When the
yes,
good stories
yes,
are there, when we're on stage keynoting and we give a good story that we know is going to grab them, you can see them tearing up. You can see them
oh
grabbing their
yeah,
loved ones' hands. Well, the
yes.
same thing in the book, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But you're right. A lot of folks resist that, sharing that story, but I'm a big believer. The other reason I think that stories are so good is that we can sound kind of preachy if we're saying, you should do this and you should do that and don't do this. It's very preachy. But if we tell a story where someone took the action and there was a positive consequence or a negative consequence. That's so much stronger than saying you should. It explains the why behind the point.
Well, and even that, often we tell our hero stories, our hero stories, our hero stories. I encourage people as keynoting or as writers, tell that big failure story. Show them
Oh
you're
yeah.
human. Show them you know how to rise back up out of the ashes, and take them on the journey of I did this, and let me tell you how you shouldn't do that. And what I learned, people will be endeared to your book and to you as a speaker when you take off the mask and get honest.
Yes. Yes.
And how do you coach that? How do you get them to be that vulnerable, to take the chance and be authentic that way?
One of the things that I do, I believe in group coaching as well as one-on-one.
Yep.
So I couple my one-on-one coaching with group. And the power of group is amazing because experienced authors or new authors, they can share their experience, they can share their stories, they can give feedback to one another. And it's sometimes better than me trying to say you should or you shouldn't.
Self learning is a great thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now that's your group called Pages, right? That's your.
Yes.
How many people typically go through a Pages session or round or whatever you do with that?
Well, it's an ongoing program, so we have a weekly session, and any of my one-on-one clients, and then I have just a Pages group for people who just want the group coaching. So the group can be small; it can be as few as 3 or 4 people that may show up, or as many as 10 or 15. But the beauty of that is you can understand that you are not alone as a writer. If you are experiencing, imposter syndrome, or you're experiencing writer's block,
Yeah.
and you find out, no, everybody is experiencing together and in community, which is really powerful.
Well, when you talk to TV writers, they talk about the writer's room. And they have the boards and everyone's working on different versions, different story. But sometimes one guy will walk on and go, You're stuck right here, aren't you? You go, "Yep." And the other writers will get together and brainstorm to get them off that stuck point. They'll go back to the other stories. And that's one of the joys of the writer's room. Do you think authors are open to that more now, the collaboration side of doing it, or they still think it's my book, it's my way, I've got to do it?
Well, most of my authors are writing their book about their thought leadership,
Yep.
but there is something about the power of community to normalize the writing experience, because writing is a very solitary experience. So coming together with other authors who are pursuing their craft is such good stuff.
Now, when it comes to getting that story engine going, is it best to just get a blank page and it was a rainy day? Or I've heard more people talk about get a video or get a audio file and start like talking your stories through. They'll be out of order, but at least you get it out of them in some way, then transcribe them later. How do you recommend people just getting it out first?
Well, I'm a big believer in outlining. You, especially for nonfiction authors, to outline your book first, and that springs out of first defining the purpose and the thesis and the targeted reader. But once we get the structure, and then we do a deep dive on the structure pieces. So I love to use post-it notes where we identify the stories, the key points we want to make, the illustrations, the exercises, and we can put those on different color coded post-it notes and then arrange them on the wall or on a uh, piece of easel paper or whatever.
Yeah.
And we can then organize those stories and ideas together before we begin writing. And then what I love about that, once you've done that pre-work and you have identified the chapter, you can then pull those sticky notes off. And one of my clients is great. She's a working mom, and she often does her writing in the the kids' carpool line as she's waiting to pick up the kids. But she'll pull off the sticky notes from her wall where she wants to write. She'll take those with her, and she actually dictates her book. So there's no one best way, and it's finding that best way for you to get your book from your head to the written page.
So I'm a visual person myself, but
Uh,
have you ever had somebody say, look, I got all the illustrations. I know what I want it to look like. Can you help me make a book out of what I've got here?
Absolutely. Now, I'm not a ghostwriter, so I
Right,
don't want to write your book for you.
right.
But what I have often done with folks who have many folks come to me because they are speakers, they have a PowerPoint
Yeah,
presentation.
yeah.
So why not put your PowerPoint up on Zoom or whatever platform you have,
Mhm.
record it, speak your presentation, and if there's a transcription service that's connected with that, you've got the first draft of your chapter or your book right there.
Well, and a lot of the thought leaders, the executives that you work with often have a blog. Their blog is a book in the making. Often they
Yes,
don't think about it. They think like, I'm not
yes,
a writer. And you're like,
yes,
look at all the
yes.
blog you're doing.
Well, one of my books, in fact, is called Blog to Book. And I got the idea because I was attending a National Speakers Association meeting, and someone came up to me and said, Cathy, I have been blogging for 12 years. I know I probably have enough content for a book, at least one book. What do you suggest I do? And I said, oh, well, that's super easy. Don't you see how to do that? And she didn't. So that's when I thought, oh, I need to write blog to book. And actually, what's fun about that book is that I wrote it as a blog to book. In other words, I had over the past years been blogging about writing. So I was able to repurpose many of those blog posts, identify what was missing, write the pieces that were missing, kind of pull them all together with a thread, a
Yeah.
connective tissue. And I had within 3 weeks, I think I had finished putting together, assimilating uh, blog to book.
Well, and audio podcasters or the
Same
video streaming
thing.
people like myself,
Yes.
they're doing their own shows. You have content that's rich to be flipped over to a book. And I say that loud to remind myself today, I can do this.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Now, there's one area that I want to poke at a little bit, and this is the coolest thing. I mean, you've done a lot of great, cool things, but really,
Yeah.
you have a credo for what you do. Kathy's credo. You have 7 or 8 different ones, but there's two that stand out on me. But first of all, what made you think of putting a credo out to explain what you stand for, why you do that? What made you do that? It's so
Oh, that's
cool.
a great question. Thank you for asking that. I can remember exactly. I was sitting at a Panera with a prospective client, and she was saying, Cathy, I don't know. Do I really have anything to say? Does anybody really want to read what I have to say? And I got really excited. And I said, yes, yes, you have something very important to share. You have a story. It's unique to you. You have learned this. And she had told me a little bit of her story. I said, yes, you have a story. So I got so excited. And I thought, why did I get so excited about that? And I thought, wow, these are things that I really believe. And I thought, I believe that you have a story and that part of your purpose is sharing that story. So I got so passionate about it that I wrote my Kathy's Credo. And I love it because it really says that I believe we all have a story to share, and
Mhm.
we all, that's part of our purpose, is to share that stories, because the story that we have, our experience, gives others hope, wisdom, joy. And that's how we change the world.
So you just took the one of them that I was going to have you
Uh-huh.
dive into. I believe our stories give others the gift of hope, wisdom, encouragement, laughter, joy, and insight. You believe that.
Yes. with my whole heart. I do. And when I talk to authors, many authors are compelled to write their book because they know they're on a mission. And frankly, some of them say, I'm on a mission from God to
Yeah,
write this
it's
book,
that burning passion to get it out. I
Yes,
got to get it out, right?
yes. So yeah, I absolutely believe that. And that's why I'm so excited about the work that I get to do. It is, as I say in my credo, it's holy work to tell your story and to help others tell their stories.
So here's the second one, and it's your
Uh,
last one.
uh-huh.
I believe that this is a holy work in writing and telling your story. That's also holy work to help others to tell their story. I love that you bridge the gap, business world, writing world, but to the spiritual world. There is something about breathing life into a book, and it is your baby. It is something that you're pouring into, but it is a
Yeah.
holy work. When you get done, often people go, wow, that's even more powerful than I thought it was going to be, right?
Yes. In fact, most of my authors tell me, well, one of the things I've always say is your book is magical and it will bring you magic. It's transformational in so many ways. And and then after a while I thought I'm overselling this book thing. And then I was talking to a couple of my authors and they said, no, you're not overselling it. It is transformational.
Yes.
There is something that comes out of putting what you believe on paper permanently, saying this is I'm making a stand. I'm taking a stand for what I believe is true and right. And that's pretty cool.
Well, that's part of the scariness I talked about because there's a
Yes,
finality, but there's also a power in that and a conviction of, I really mean it. So I put it to pen and paper. It works both ways.
yes, it does.
And wrestling with that, I think, is good.
It's very good. In fact, I think part of the transformation comes in sort of going through the process of saying, what do I really believe?
Well, yeah.
What is it that I really think? And what do I want people to know? And that discernment that you're going through during the writing process, that's part of the transformation. And then stepping into your thought leadership with a
Yes.
confidence that you probably did not have before. So many of my authors have said, "Gosh, Cathy, it has just given me
Mhm.
this power that I didn't know I had." And it's like we all have the power, but we have to step into it, and that's what authoring a book does.
Well, and I think there's something with that is people are also wanting to know, like, and trust. But I think trust and leadership is blown really bad right now in the country. I
Yes,
think they're looking for people to have that, put it down in writing. This is what I believe. You can't erase it. You can't delete it. And I think they were looking for people that will stand on that in that confidence. And I think it's a hunger that we want as readers and consumers. Am I onto something there?
I think you're onto something there. Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
once they get it, they do feel like they can step up the mic. They can talk about more because they have something to fall back on. And going back to the beginning, it really is your new business card.
Absolutely. And meeting planners understand this too. People who book speakers, they want authors because they have that kind of confidence and that kind of conviction and passion for their topic. And that's what meeting planners want when they bring a speaker in for a conference or program.
Well, Kathy, has been dynamite. I want to make sure we get your website up here because people are going to want to go click and learn more about.
Yes.
Tell us what they're going to find when they click and scan that QR code.
Well, there's all kinds of information for folks who are interested in being a thought leader, stepping into that thought leadership. So I have a wide range of services, everything from group coaching to one-on-one and lots of things in between. Take a look and see how I might be able to serve you and your thought leadership journey.
Hit the QR code, check it out, make contact. And again, She also is part of the National Speakers Association. So she's either writing, speaking, or doing both at the same time, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
How many of your books have come out of your speaking? Which comes first to you? Is the writing the book and then the speaking, or is it the speaking and then the writing of the book?
I don't know. For me, they've come sort of in tandem with one another. And certainly it's sort of like, I don't know which comes first, the chicken or the egg. I'm not sure.
Is there a new book on the horizon? Is there something in the work already that we can tease out there, or not?
I'm always thinking about what's next. So one of the things I'm toying with is the transformative power of authorship, which just talked a little bit about here today.
Right there. Look at that.
Mhm.
Cathy, great to have you with us here on Rock the Stage Show. Any final thoughts, comments to encourage the wannabe author that has that story but just can't get over the confidence issue that we talked about?
Yeah, I just want to encourage people to make your mark. Step up to thought leadership and write that book.
Cathy Fyock, thank you very much for being on Rock the Stage.
Thank you.
Wow. Now that's a lot of stuff to digest here today. So you got to make sure you go back, replay, highlight, scribble, do whatever you need to do to make sure you get all that Cathy provided here today. But the business leader has a tool that, again, many are underutilizing. And the number one reason I think they are underutilizing this book idea is confidence. We often, as leaders and executive leaders, exude the physical confidence, but in the quietness of our home and our own comments, you realize we're scared to death of writing a book. Take the challenge, have some fun, write that book, get it out there. And join us again next week for another edition of Rock the Stage Show. We'll be back with another exciting guest. Always unscripted, always lots of fun like this. Join us again for another edition of Rock the Stage